All right, I'd like to call the May 16th, 2024 Wasilla Airport Advisory Meeting to order. The time is 6:01 p.m. Just reminding everybody, please put away cell phones. I don't think we have anybody participating telephonic. Let's see. The clerk, would you please perform the roll call?
Okay. Commissioner Grogan. Commissioner McCarty.
Present?
Commissioner Morris.
Present.
Commissioner McCabe. Commissioner Lucas.
Present.
And, Eric Schaal, Public Works Director.
Here.
Okay, Crystal Nygard, Deputy Administrator.
Here.
Okay.
Good deal. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Lucas, would you like to start us?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First item of business is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? All right. Hearing no objections, the agenda is approved as presented. Staff reports.
We've got item 5 first.
Oh, item 5?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Approval minutes.
Yep.
Regular. Item 5. Approval minutes.
Yeah, so I had to write it in there.
So you just ask if there's any amendments or changes to the minutes, and if not, it can be.
Oh, the agenda. Okay, so I did the agenda and I did
Yeah.
minutes different.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Are there any changes to the minutes? All right, hearing no objection. Objection. Oh yeah, hearing no objection, the minutes are approved as presented. Okay, staff reports.
Eric Schaal, Public Works Director. So spring is kicking off at the airport. You'll notice that we did all the sweeping, and we have been adding striping where we plan to get to that this summer. We've been doing some brushing, and we're also trying to effect some temporary fence repairs. A lot of it has frost heaved and fallen over, and some of those areas are big enough that we have to get permitting through the FAA, so that's taking a while. But we're also coordinating with Neeser Construction as they've restarted the Apron E Phase 2 project. So happened in place out there, and we're just getting our spring startup work completed. That's all I have.
All right. Any public comment? Okay. Moving on to unfinished business. Airport rate study on hold. Was the comment?
So I'll jump up front so I can use my laptop and show you some stuff. So as Commissioner Grogan will remind us, we talked about rates a long time ago. Do something. And what we've done is put that on hold with the direction of the council as we kind of get through this budget process. But one of the things that we've been working on in the background to get data collected and so that we can make data-driven decisions is we have procured a program called Waterworth, but they're transitioning to a broader name called MuniWorth. That is going to help us look at the operational costs and the revenues for the airport, water utility, and the sewer utility. And so it is kind of the next iteration from like an Excel spreadsheet or going out and hiring a consultant that does one study and says you should do this, and then it's usually very onerous and no one wants to implement those changes, and then it just sits on a shelf and you spend a ton of money and you don't do anything with it, which is the typical method of all cities across the nation. So what's interesting about the model, I'll fire it up. Waterworth has a really integral data collection system. So but it graphs it. So it's pretty neat how you can go in and add all of your costs. I'm trying to remember how to. It's a new scenario, but you go through this whole that one. If I click on any of these, there we go, that's what I wanted to see. So you work through the actual budget, you talk about community growth, any asset renewal, your borrowing scenarios, your reserve policies, and then you can make forecasts. And so what the bottom line is, so if we look at, I want to zoom in. Well, if you see that there's this little red dashed line down here, that's the operating threshold. And so some of those things come from the finance director. The finance director will say, to be solvent, you need to have at least 3 or 6 months operating funds at all times. And then you might jump back up to the cash position target. And so you can see that cursor is showing that what we're operating right now is at least a $73,000 operating threshold. We have about $292,000 in operating expenses where my cursor is. And then there's no capital projects forecast that far out. I'm gonna move back a little bit. So it's a really great way to visualize, why did it feel like I just dropped off? Visualize the data. It did just drop off.
I can hear you better without it.
Do we think the battery died?
Maybe it's flashing. Oh, it's
It came back. Okay, I'll just use that. But I'll put up a little bit. So anyway, this is a great representation on the numbers so you can see it better, because looking at spreadsheets is not intuitive, right? But also we can play with scenarios. So should in the future the rates increase, we can illustrate what that will do for revenue into the future. But it also is very useful for decision makers to say, well, what if we don't want to raise rates too much? So let's play with these numbers and we can forecast how long that decision amortizes out in front. And so like if we use a water sewer example, say we really need to raise rates 10% or something like that, but no one can politically stomach it. So you can show if you don't raise rates 10% this year, you'll have to raise rates 6% for the next 3 years straight to catch back up, because it takes it into account. So what will happen with this scenario right here is once we get through this current budget cycle, which the council meets next week to go through line by line on the budget. And if you want to see the budget, you can go to our website and go to the 13th, the meeting from this Monday, and go to the council packet, and the budget is right here in this proposed budget. So it's a large document, it's 275 pages, but this is what the council will be reviewing next Wednesday and Thursday to start to bring in their oversight if they want to adjust things or add things wherever they want to do. But this is the administration's budget as presented to the council to have either modified or ratified. And so if at the end of those 2 meetings, we have 2 more meetings the next week where you read the budget twice, we'll read those budget, whatever the amended budget is, and then it'll be voted on after that. So that's kind of the process as it touches both the airport fund and the broader city budget process. Just trying to think if there's anything else. One of the things to note in this graph, so the blue bars are grants, and the green is associated with capital projects. And so, if we weren't getting grants, but we still were using funds, if the airport had a big savings account, or general funds, you might see this blip over here where there was spending, but it wasn't related to grants. And then the black line that drops off here at the end is the cash position, which means that, you know, unless we get more grants, there would either need to be a transfer from the general fund or we'd run out of money. So that's kind of why, it's illustrated in that way, so that it's obvious that you need to find some funding to keep moving. So the way that, if I go to asset renewal, yeah, future capital improvements. No, that's not the one I want.
2025.
Was I in the wrong one?
2025.
Yeah. There was a spreadsheet where we're entering them in. Why am I not seeing that? Also, don't be afraid. I'm not the one that drives this. There's a consultant that comes with it. So they get the numbers from us, and then we talk about it, and then we can make scenarios. So I don't know where the information is. Maybe it's the budget. There it is. See, I wasn't crazy. So what we've done is we've added in all of the projects from 2019 moving forward, and so you can see things like the runway extension, the $5 million that from the state, that's coming in between fiscal year 24 and 25. We've already spent a little bit of that money, and so we're carrying over the rest of it into the project this year. We've got the FAA master plan phases 1 and 2. We've got airport equipment that we've purchased, runway maintenance, both paid for by FAA and the city, the marking repairs, taxiway K work, that sort of stuff. So this is where we can put the figures in, and then we can see what happens with the graph. So sorry that took so long, but that's the explanation. Any questions?
Yeah, so are you planning on basically putting out different scenarios and kind of filling out the graph and then kind of presenting it
Yes.
as basically so we can see the consequences of different actions and how they reflect on the budget?
And what I'd like to do is we'll take the numbers that we talked about many months ago, we'll put it into this graphing system, and then we can look at it again as the advisory committee, and then we can, if there's any reason to change anything, we can do that. But then we can bring it to the council and say, you know, this is what we've put together, so that they can see, and because ultimately it requires their ratification for those increases, but they want to look to the advisory commission for guidance in that way.
Okay.
So
For sure. There you go.
so the rate increases that we talked about last summer still have not been implemented?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Rates are still the same.
And that's, the purpose of that is just to make sure that we confirm the data, we confirm that is the right decision, because if we do change the rates prematurely, or if the rates that we had decided on either aren't enough or are too much, we can't really go back, because once the change happens, it's basically.
We can always change it. It's just a lot of work for no benefit. Mhm.
Right. Okay.
Want to do it once, if we can at all help it. And that's where we have to read the political winds, right? So if a bunch of work goes on at this stage and it goes to the council, and the council either doesn't understand what we're talking about or was never supportive of it,
Right.
you know, we don't want to spin our wheels for no reason. But they're the ones that end up ratifying that.
Will there be more tie-down space available this summer, or how is that?
Yes, there will. With the Apron E Phase 2 being completed, there'll be 27 more spots.
You know how big the waiting list is at the moment?
I do. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's the next item. Good deal. What's the time frame on getting all this done, as far as like getting all the fancy graphs and
Oh,
everything?
it's very, very fast. This doesn't need any. It take 3 or 4 days maximum. They're very responsive, and it's
So
already.
this is a pretty new thing?
Yeah, we've been working on it for the last 3 months. The question when we were first addressing this, the schedule was, do we have it ready for this current budget review? And so what came through finance was, because we have a new finance director, and there are a bunch of changes, we're only doing a 1-year budget, and then we'll go back into the biennial budget. And so it made sense for us to not, pile on the work to a new finance director to try to build this model and do the whole budget process. So we'll use this model to help us develop all of the proposals for water, sewer, and the airport, but it'll come after the budget cycle, which isn't a big deal. It can have, if the council chooses to increase rates, it can happen at any time. It doesn't really matter what budget cycle is. The finance director would like it to be fiscal, but that's not required. So, yeah,
Yep.
we've changed fees in the middle of the fiscal year all the time. So,
Okay. Yeah, so I guess we're just waiting, I guess when,
we'll get through the budget, and then we'll
so
put,
like
I'll have some
another
finance.
month, or like
Probably
next
3, I would say.
3 months?
Yeah, because I lean on the finance department to help me build these, because they're pulling all the numbers.
Yeah.
So they're swamped right now for finishing that budget process. Then when it's, what's the word? When it's complete, when they have ratified or whatever it's called,
Yeah.
the budget, they will then have to implement. They'll have a bunch of work that next month, basically. And so I'm hoping in the next 2 months we can take the finalized budget, because I need to have that in here too, so we know what we're talking about. Take the finalized budget, and then we'll put in those rate increases,
Okay.
and then we can run those scenarios. So
Does this also take into account like the airport master plan that's ongoing, and do they?
it can absolutely in the CIP, absolutely.
Because I know that we had talked about with HDL, they were doing a rate study as well, as far as
Yeah, they were looking at that snapshot to see how we can compare it to the neighbors and stuff, and they did the exact same thing this does.
okay.
They said the general fund has had to add money to the fund every year, and you don't have a lot of change. You're not adding a lot of tie down spaces. This is more detailed than theirs was.
Okay,
Basically.
so they've already completed their
Correct.
study. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then this will also be sent to the FAA, I assume, with the master plan, as far as making sure that we continue to receive grants and show that we're
Yeah.
investing in the airport.
Yes.
Okay.
We do that through the reporting already, because we have multiple ongoing grants, and we have a grant administrator on the finance side that fills out the forms, get the reimbursements, show that. But yeah, this will also be useful for us to explain, a couple things. We'll use this to show the projections on increased revenue because of more tie downs, and then more leases if the lease rates go up, that sort of thing. And we'll definitely show that to FAA, because they want to see, they've already told us that they're expecting us to raise rates because they want to see the airport carry its way. They have expectations of that, so.
Cool. I think I have no further questions. You guys?
So we're expecting,
Mike?
Mike Lucas, we're expecting 27 new tie downs,
Correct.
and there's some on the gravel by the fuel pump.
Yes, those are new transient tie downs.
Oh, that's that's transient?
Yep.
Okay. And so is there just 3 or 4 there, or can you make,
There's five transient tie downs next to Crowley's now.
okay,
And there'll be 27 full-time tie downs in Apron E Phase 2.
and then how about all the way to the west, the gravel that's to the south?
So we call that Alpha Row. Is that, you're talking about right by the hangars?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's somebody that's tied on gravel there.
Yes.
Seems like there could be some there too.
Yeah, I think we have installed a few there. Yeah,
Okay,
yep.
so there could be another half dozen there, or,
I don't know if we can get that many, but I know we can put 2 more if we haven't already.
okay.
So, is there any more questions on the budget that we have, the rate study? The next item on the business is the tie-down permits and wait lists. So we're thinking, there's no further questions here, we'll move to the new business, which is the tie-down permits, wait list process. I know tie-downs are a big subject for Wasilla, so maybe we can just move right on to that one and maybe address it in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the way that we handle, let's see how to explain this. So, while Public Works manages the airport, we have a finance, position who has, in the budget, she has 5% of her time being allocated to the airport. But if you call to talk about leases, or if you call to pay your bill, or if you call because you're a transient person, you'll get Melissa Young. And so she maintains the tie-down wait list. And so she and I were chatting about the details so I could explain in more depth tonight how that works. But basically, she has this list that she's running through. I've hidden some of the information just for privacy, but right now we have an active list of 103 people waiting for tie downs. And so what she does is she keeps preference information on what row or space, or if they want electric or if they don't care. And so she keeps a bunch of records so that she can understand what they might be looking for and when a tie down comes open. She starts the list. But the procedure as it's been written over the years allows for people to pass if they're not interested but stay in line. So that's something that we probably should talk about, what's fair. One of the things to note is that Mr. Spano, who's come and spoke to us, he's very enlightened and easy to chat about airport stuff with. He's been waiting for an alpha tie down since 2019. So this list is at least 4.5 years old, 3.5 years old. So if something comes up, she'll call the first person and give them 3 days to respond, whether or not they want it, and then she'll move on to the next one. So one tie down can take up to a month to issue to someone, and so from my perspective, that's too much work on her part for a $45 tie down. And so there are people that, so also, and just for transparency in the process, if you turn down a spot for 3 times, or if you just won't respond, we're dropping you from the wait list.
3 times?
Yeah. We can't afford to take that much admin time and try to keep track of that all when we have 100 people
Makes sense.
who are responsive. And then there's some, most of our tie downs are all the same size, but we do have Golf Row, which is larger airplanes. And so we do have some people waiting for Golf. I forget how far down the list they were. But we're also trying to contact people that haven't had planes in their tie downs for forever and just verify that they're still active without having, on the harbor side, you have usually daily dock walks to figure out when a vessel has come and gone, because it's very common for Alaska harbors to hot berth, which means if you leave for a certain number of days, you're required by your contract with the harbor master to alert them, and then they can put visiting vessels in your slip because you're already going to be gone for 10 days or a month or whatever it is. We don't do that, really. We kind of know who our patrons are, but because of that, it also allows for people to just kind of sneak in and take a tie down. And we hear that quite a bit, that people will come back and be like, there's an airplane in my tie down, and then you're left with trying to figure out who it is and then kind of confronting them and saying, get out of my tie down. So that's an unfortunate interaction out there because we don't have full-time staff. We don't have an airport manager that would be tasked with keeping regular track of where the planes are and if that's the right plane for the right tie down, and then helping visitors know where to go, because a lot of times you have no idea. You just land and see an open tie down and use it, but there are people that do play the game of shell game of kind of bouncing around, you know, because they know they don't have to go very far before we don't notice that they're in someone else's empty tie down. So anyway, so she uses this for keeping track of who's waiting, but also she has the list of all of our current tenants and keeps track of the billing on that. And then, like especially with leases and stuff, we have insurance requirements, and so there's quite a bit of work to remind leaseholders that they need to turn in their insurance information, or if they've subleased, they have to show us that they've subleased it, because we need to know who's operating out there. So there's a lot of care and feeding that is made more difficult by, you know, kind of being remote from it, but also not having one person that's tasked daily with checking in on those sorts of things. Were there any other questions on the tie down or the waiting list process?
So basically it's all run off of an internal spreadsheet that is kept
That's
in the
correct.
finance office there.
Yep.
And then when somebody releases a spot or says that they don't want it, that's basically start at number one and work your way down.
Yep.
Just out of curiosity, has there been, I'm always impressed with the different forms of software that you find to help organize your job. Is
Yes.
there any, I assume you may have looked into like a different way to organize it, or some kind of software that maybe could make the process more transparent, or is that just not something that really exists right now? Or is that not worth looking into?
No, it's definitely worth looking into. I really want to. I've made calls to the airport manager at Merrill Field, and I've made contact, of course, with Palmer and some of our other neighbors. And none of them use a system. They'd love to find a system, and I think it's common throughout municipal government that you're so small, you don't know where to go look for it. And so that's something that I'd like to capitalize on, is finding those partners in the same field that have found a program that works good for them. Figure out what they're using. You know, that comes from conferences and work groups and stuff like that. I just haven't had a chance to rub shoulders with anyone who isn't who's further away than, you know, Palmer and Merrill Field right now.
I find it interesting that Palmer, at least every time I've checked or needed a spot over there and called them, there's always seems to be spots available. I know they have like 5 or 6 spots available right now. You can just call, and yeah, it's interesting that Wasilla has 103
Yeah.
spots on a wait list. So
Yeah.
it's,
Well, and like I said, we haven't been very thorough on identifying spots that are always empty, that they probably could turn them back in, or asking them to if they're not going to put a plane there. And then also identifying planes that aren't operational and haven't been operational a long time. We've got a lot of housekeeping that we should do. It's just starting that process is pretty disruptive. And so unless you've got a clear-cut plan, starting the process when it's half-baked isn't palatable. So one of the things I'd like to do is find a system that in a lot of ways replicates, you know, something you might see in a reservation for a campground or a hotel or something like that. So I'm just firing up the parcel viewer because it's got great imagery. But if I could wave a magic wand and make a program, one of the things I'd really like to do is have a map such as this that has all of the tie downs identified, you know, by row and number, and make it so that waitlist people can highlight the ones they're interested in, because there are some people that say, I'll take anything, but then when Melissa calls them, they say, well, I really don't want to be anywhere but XYZ, or I really want to be next to my friend, or something like that. So there's all this very nuanced management about where I will go and where I won't go. And what I'd love to do is turn that over to the person on the wait list to highlight where they're willing to go, and make these caveats, if you will, so that when one comes open and it meets their criteria, then they're alerted. And then the onus is on them to respond to the alert saying, you put your name on the wait list for Charlie 5, it is now open, you better jump on this, you know?
Yeah.
So that it's not a administrative burden to track down and give
Right.
3 days and wait, all these things. And then to just have a general opening, like there's 3 open right now, do you want any of those, you know, so that you can just see. I just want people to be able to have clarity on what's available. And then also, like I said, if you already have a plane, you really like your plane side by side, I think it'd be an interesting opportunity to say, I'd like to be on a swap list. And so you say, could I be here? And then, you know, I think that people could work amongst themselves, say, yeah, we want to switch, which does happen from time to time. We don't really have a problem with that as long as we can record it. But, you know, I think putting the control back into the patron's hands as much as possible cuts down on admin time and just makes it a more enjoyable experience. So
How often do spots get transferred without going through the wait list process? Because I know of at least a few times that I've heard people where they're like, oh, I sold my plane, giving up my spot, and then their buddy will be like, oh, well, I really wanted a spot at Wasilla for a long time. And so they just transfer spot from one to another.
that's an excellent question. I didn't ask her that.
I don't want to
Yeah.
rock the boat too much, but
Well, and so one of the, like in the harbor world, if you sell your boat and you had a stall, the stall does not go with the boat.
right. Do we have a list of N numbers that are? Because I know some people use their spot as, you know, I know there's a few maintenance facilities and things that need spots that have many different airplanes that go
Yeah,
through.
like
So
overflow.
that's kind of a special case, but
Right.
for some of the spots that are owned and meant for private individuals that have one airplane,
Yeah.
do we have a list of potential N numbers that are in?
Yes. Yeah, we ask you to register them all. You can have one spot, multiple planes.
Right.
You need to register all of them.
Okay.
So that we do have that ability to say, this spot is leased to one person, but they have 3 tail numbers listed, so are they one of the
Right.
3? Yeah, that's
There's
required.
some spots that just, this is a maintenance facility. It's going to
Right.
be varying. Just trust that whatever's there is theirs.
Correct, assuming that they are policing it, right? But those are the exception most of the time. And so that's something to remember. If you have multiple planes and one spot, you should register all your planes for that spot so that you have that flexibility. Because technically, you're not allowed to put any plane in there that's not registered with us. So yours or your friends, or if they're not registered, then they are not supposed to be there. So that's the use agreement that everyone signs.
Do you allow transfers from like a friend to a friend, kind of like?
I
is
suspect we do, but I haven't been, it actually hasn't come across my desk.
Okay.
So there had been kind of a compartmentalization through finance collecting the money and monitoring that. I think that's probably some policy that we need to clean up. You know, black and white, can you transfer, or does it have to go back into the waitlist pool? I would naturally say it should go back in the waitlist pool, otherwise why are you on the waitlist? But should you be able to remain on the waitlist forever if you turn down spots? Maybe not. Maybe we need to come up with a policy that has a lot of churn, you know, since there's a high number of people waiting. You know, you've got to have some fairness in how you manage that, so.
And then I guess kind of going to one of the subjects that Mr. Lucas brought up earlier, adding more spots. We have Apron E that's being built, and then a couple of spots opened kind of in some gravel areas.
Yes. What is the ultimate build out? Is that your question?
Yeah, so adding more, and then also, you know, gravel or maybe long-term, or maybe a section for aircraft that would be in extended maintenance potentially.
right.
I
Yep.
see a lot of airplanes that, you know, especially like there's that twin-engine seaplane that's sitting there. I don't want to embarrass myself and not identify it correctly, but would there be a potential to like move some of those across the field, or to put those in a place that maybe isn't in an area that would be very active, where the owner can still have access to it and potentially still work on it, but also open up those places for people who would be more active at the airport and clear some of the wait list out.
Yeah, I believe there's nothing in the code that would prevent that.
There, yeah.
And we've taken this fence down. We were using this as our impound yard, but we have added some tie downs in this gravel area off of.
Right,
Alpha
so like
Road.
expanding that and making even some of, I know that you were planning commercial lots kind of across the way, across
Yeah.
the runway. But, you know, while those are being built, while the apron's being expanded, maybe moving, if there is any potential, I don't even know what the access is like over there, but.
Yeah, and I think that's where we get stymied on that side. We're working right now to permit, we're calling this taxiway kilo over here.
Okay,
We don't have any access right now. And so because it's, even though we've already filled it through FAA projects, we still have to go through the environmental process to make the access better. It's kind of frustrating actually. But phase 2 of Apron E, like I said, will come online this summer. It'll be mid-July, so right in the middle of the season, thankfully. But we do have some leeway to probably add some more tie downs down here by Alpha Row. So that's
Maybe
something we
like-
could look at.
yeah, some like higher density, you know, tail to tail. Or
Yeah, we could do that.
move some things around and maybe offer those guys some kind of incentive if it's an aircraft that appears to be
Well, they could
low
either-
utilization.
They could either move or leave.
They could
Yeah, right?
move or leave.
Yeah, there's no incentive. It's already
Yeah.
the cheapest place to keep a plane.
It
so-
is pretty much in the
yeah.
whole valley. That's
Yeah.
probably why the wait list is so long.
Right, exactly.
In Palm
No,
Beach.
I think that's a great idea. I think it's fair to say that, you know, those planes will eventually be, you know, completed and fly again, but, you know, to
You
have
want to be
active
fair to them, but also
users.
you don't. At the
And not
expense.
in hardship, like moving a mobile plane out of an airport by truck is
Right.
not gonna be easy, so.
Right.
Yeah, I'll definitely look at that with my, maintenance team, see what else we can do.
Okay. I know that I have gotten a lot of questions about the waitlist process, and then also the process of acquiring lease lots at the airport.
Yes,
There seems to be, it's kind of a hot button topic.
right.
Is there any way that we could potentially just have a summary of what the waitlist process is like and put that on the website? So
Yes,
we can kind
absolutely.
of point people to that to say,
Here's the
this-
policy.
this
And-
is the policy,
Yep.
this is the way it is. I know that the lease lots are written into the Wasilla City Code, the process for those,
Yes,
but the tie downs are not, and it is sort of,
and it would be good for, on both cases, to have a policy statement versus code, which is
Right.
a little bit harder to read. Yeah, I agree. Our website in general is a point of.
yeah. It doesn't have to be anything,
Gonna get a
No,
whole
super-
new-
It won't be. It's
maybe just a
unfortunately
Facebook statement, I guess,
yeah,
or something.
Exactly. No, but we'll put together a document. That's not hard.
Okay.
We
Just-
definitely want to upgrade our public outreach for that kind of information.
I know that I've received a lot of questions, and I'm sure everybody else has too, so having somewhere to point to for an official statement would be kind of nice, so
Yeah.
that clarifies that.
I would love to have a portal where a person, you know, registers himself and keeps it up to date, and like I said, has a bunch of information at their fingertips, and just makes it as dynamic as possible so that they can find the value that they need, but also, you know, be part of the process, and we can reduce our administrative burden.
Mike?
Okay, so we don't know what the process, the process for acquiring a lease lot.
I can talk about that. So, what the mayor has directed is that the remaining, so we have, let me back up for a sec. So we have kind of, how would I quantify them? I guess we have 4 sections of leases, right? We have the big group down here by Alpha Row. We have the section that's got Crowley and then our transient, there's a couple leases in the middle. Then we've got the section that backs up against Crosswind Circle or Court with Stoy on the end, and then the sections that run along West Aviation. If we categorize these leases over here on the aviation side, and then the undeveloped side of the airport that's kind of in the Nygard, the mayor has designated those to be commercial leases. I'm pretty sure it was in the 2013 master plan, but in the current master plan that's being worked on right now, we also include this big 79-acre parcel as future leases. This would be a mixed use of more private leases and more commercial. So right now, if you look at what's available, or what's either been subdivided as leases or what could be subdivided as leases, it's all commercial. There is one undeveloped lease remaining in the private section. So that there's not much out there right now. So through the commercial lease process, we are receiving business prospectus documents from those potential leasers to explain why they would bring value to the airport and what that would mean to jobs, sales tax, the broader economy. And so it's basically a proposal-based system versus a list, so that we can continue to build the commercial side of the airport as we continue to go out for state and federal grants to extend the runway based on the premise that commercial users will bring larger airplanes, which will bump the numbers up with FAA to meet the new runway requirements. Because right now they're still saying that we're just going to remain a GA with I think a B2 rating. And so that doesn't move the needle on a runway. And so what we have to do is pair the interest from commercial with the data that we have to show FAA whether or not they pay for that runway extension or not. They're insisting that we show them that. So that's why that process is organized that way, because it front loads the data we need to continue to build that case with FAA.
So, the lease lot policy is based on why they would bring value to the airport. Is there a board or?
No, it's through it's through my department and with the mayor.
Okay.
And then when a lot is identified that works size-wise, then of course there's planning documents, there's going in front of, usually they're big enough that it goes in front of the planning commission for the lease itself as well. Right now, the code says that if you want a 10-year lease and building a hangar that's less than 100 by 100, you can get a permit directly across the counter from me. And so there's value in doing that, because then you secure your lease, and then you can package together a longer lease and take it in front of the council and get a 30-year lease after it goes through that whole process. So that's kind of the model that I've seen as I've researched how it's been done in the past. But you don't have to get a 10-year lease if you have the time and you want to go through the conditional use permit. Then you just secure the lease. It's typically 30 years with a renewal in there. Any other questions? No.
No further questions? All right.
Thank you very
Good deal. Well, moving on. Public comment. Have any public comments? No. All right. Any comments from the commission or any staff members? No, at this point.
Chairman, I have a couple comments. Crystal Nygard, Deputy Administrator for the city. You brought up a really good point about the,
Hang on a sec.
Yeah, I think the mic is messed up there.
Is that better?
Oh, yeah.
So you brought up a really good point about understanding what the process is right now. And we have hired a contractor that is evaluating every workflow in the city. So we can see how long it takes from the minute you call until the minute you get some solution, all the way down to manual timesheets right now. And so that assessment will be done June 22nd. And then we have put it in the budget to do a new ERP. What we find is that the residents and the business owners don't want to have 4 different accounts. Set up an account to pay sales tax, set up an account to do this, set up an account to do that. So there's a financial component to this process as well. And so they call it ERP. And so that ERP assessment will allow us to pick some type of electronic record program that will allow us to have one portal to do a variety of different things. So one account, and I need to get a business license, I need to look at the lease lots available at the airport, and so it really streamlines our process because right now it's very manual. So we'll keep you updated on that. We are also gonna redo our website so there's more engagement. From the time you go to the website, it says, what are you interested in? Animal control or airport? And every time something happens in those parts of the city, you'll get notified. So it's really centralizing the services, so you can do most things on your phone, and you can pay or you can inquire on your phone. The other thing is an RP will be going out in the next 2 weeks to update our comp plan. And the comp plan is something all the cities do every 10 years. And it's really important because the industrial zone of the airport will be discussed as far as how do we use it, who uses it, how do they use it. There's quite a big impact, as well as what's the standard for the airport district, what kind of tenants will we allow, and what kind of standard of construction will be allowed. So we'll have a private contractor who facilitates that, and will take an entire year from September to September. And then I guess the fun things is we're gonna have 4th of July parade again. It will be on the 4th of July, and we have a new route coming down Cruzy, and then over Swanson to Lucille, and we're gonna cap it at 25 floats, even during a political.
75,
What did I say?
25.
Oh yeah, 75.
Okay.
75.
2 floats.
Yeah, we're gonna have 2 floats. So anyway, if you're interested in having a float or you want to volunteer, contact the city, and we will make sure that you play a role in that. Thank you.
And just to clarify, ERP is,
It's
Yeah.
it's Enterprise Resource Program or something. It has to do with all of the business functions of the city.
okay,
So like she said, finance, timesheets,
okay,
it digitizes all the paper we're using.
okay, thank you. No further comments?
Is there a wings over Wasilla this year? Did that?
Wings over Wasilla?
There is
Not
none.
not happening.
I haven't heard of an active committee for it, so hasn't been in a couple years. Can I give an update real quick?
Yes.
So for the master plan, we're in what we call phase 2, which is the how do I phrase this? It's when the ideas come out on paper so that everyone can see it. And so the consultants are putting together those ideas based on information we've already gotten, and then internal, our ideas, what we want to do. And then there's also going to be some, I don't want to call them Easter eggs. There's going to be some really innovative things. Maybe things that you hate, which is good, because we want you to come out and say, I hate that idea, don't do it. But while I'm here, I like this idea, do this one over here. So there's going to be some instigators, if you will. So there'll be a lot of public noticing. I'll let you know through AAC, but also just make sure you know about it because we want you to show up. But it'll be that there'll be several public meetings scheduled soon that will have paper in place and all the engineers, and we'll be looking for your input on what's right, feasible, what's terrible. But if you see something that you viscerally hate, we want to know that. But there's going to be those things that stir the community to come to it, if that makes sense. And it's a 10-year plan, so there's going to be some big ideas where you're like, we're never going to get that big. Well, maybe not this 10-year decade, but who knows. So anyway, just pay attention to that. This is what people really like, right? Like they don't get excited about we've got like the inventory report, so like that, the reason I have the website up here is so you can see those are all the documents that have been created so far. So if you want to check it out, go to the website, click above this photo, and we have to do the inventory report for FAA, But what everyone really wants to see is those ideas about what we'll build into the future. So this is the fun part, as the consultants will say.
Okay. All right. I believe you have no further business. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Nothing.
Okay. Or,
One other thing.
okay, one more thing.
Yeah, just one thing. You might have read in the paper that the FAA Reauthorization Act did pass, and there is some little gold nuggets in there for the smaller city municipal airports like ourselves, and how we can have some, potentially have some leniency as far as we grow. So I'll be bringing you some details forward as far as how that's going to impact us, because we did put some verbiage in there and sent it back to Washington specifically for the smaller city-owned airports.
Well, all right. All right. Unless the objection is raised, we shall adjourn. Motion to adjourn, seconded. All right. This meeting is adjourned at 6:52 p.m.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, just for a little bit.
Just checked
I feel like I forget it.
How long is the flight out there?
30 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, gosh, that's not bad.
It's not very far. So what do we call this airport? Small airport, it's called. Civilian airport?
What do you mean? What?
What is the name of the airport? What size of airport?
It's a private airport. Duluth is a private. It's owned by
Yeah,
Hilton.
no, I mean our Wasilla.
Wasilla Airport.
We just call it GA, General Aviation.
And we're trying to take it to what? What's the next step
Oh,
up?
I think it's, what is it, B2? Was it designated? It's the size.
B2?
It's their